Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you are. We're really excited to meet all of you today and share a little bit more information about ECG Management Consultants and our internship program. I'll ask if anybody whose microphone isn't muted, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself, that'd be much appreciated for the group. We'll share about an hour together today, moving through content for the first 40 minutes or so, and then we'll leave about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so for questions at the end. We'll start off with some introductions today, and then we'll move through some information, general information about the firm, some kind of key facts and figures to get to know us a little bit better. We'll talk about our key division offerings so you can understand the particular work streams we have here at ECG, and then move into some of the more nuts and bolts and details of our internship program itself. So I'll start off with some introductions today for the three of us who are going to be presenting. It's good to meet you all. My name is Cassie Miller. I'm a senior consultant with ECG. I've been at the firm full-time for just over 2 years, and I participated in our internship program in the summer of 2022, in the middle of my graduate program. So I'll have some direct experience to speak to you about that today. I'm based in our Boston office, and I sit in our healthcare consulting pool, which you'll learn a little bit more about later in the presentation. But most of my work focuses on managed care strategy and payer contracting type work. And I'll pass it over to Jake to introduce himself next, and then Kate can start taking us through the slides.
Mm-hmm. Again, like Cassie said, great to have speaking with you. But my name is Jake Beaver. I'm a manager in our medical group optimization division. I've been with ECG for about 3.5 years, based out of one of our 8 offices in Minneapolis. And I do a lot of our governance, physician compensation, valuation, design work, and we'll go over kind of what each division does as we go on. But looking forward to this meeting. I'll pass it to Kate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Taylor. I am an associate principal at ECG. I've been with ECG for 3 years next month, I think. So it's exciting. I'm actually fully remote. I'm based out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Go Vols. Jake has sat on lots of calls where I do that, so he's probably tired of hearing it. But I'm a big volunteer fan. It's East Tennessee, for those of you who don't know. But I do work with a lot of colleagues in the Minneapolis office, including Jake. And I sit in the medical group optimization division as well. I'm going to toss us over to the next slide, Cassie. For some reason, it's not moving. Okay, that's fine. So what you'll see on the consulting with purpose slide that I just wanted to emphasize here is the purpose and our vision. I've actually got a little cutout on my desk. I did put it there for today. I actually have that on my desk because it really does mean something to me, and personally, I think my entire team as well. But these 2 items really sum up what ECG is driven by. When we say consulting with purpose, it's not just a catchphrase. Or something that sounds nice. It's really how we approach the work that we do every single day. Our purpose is about using what we know and having the guts to take on a big, messy, hairy healthcare challenge, which I think Cassie and Jake will speak to, happens quite a lot. That's usually when we get engaged to work on things. But ultimately, it's to take better care and make care accessible for everyone, not just our clients and not just ourselves. Of course, we analyze data, we build PowerPoints, we do all the stuff you'd expect, but we also help organizations really solve problems that affect patients and communities. And what's nice about ECG is we get to do it in a lot of different ways. That might be helping a health system redesign how it pays its doctors, which is what Jake and I do a lot of, expand access to care in more rural areas, things like that. But it's all rooted in the belief that healthcare can and should work better for people. Our mission is just as much about us as it is about our clients. We want everyone at ECG, from interns to partners, to reach their absolute full potential, work at the top of their license. Because when we grow, we help our clients do the same thing. And one thing you'll notice here at ECG is that we're very hands-on. We're in the room with leaders, helping make decisions that actually move the needle. It's quite challenging, right? You do have to travel a little bit, but I think that's what mixes things up a little bit and creates a fun atmosphere to work in. But it's also super rewarding because you actually get to see the impact of your work. So when you think about ECG, just think about a group of people who are deeply embedded in healthcare, who work hard to make an actual difference and do it with a purpose. Are you guys seeing the slides move yet? Oh.
Not actually.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just going to keep going.
No, we're not. Yeah, we're not seeing anything.
Okay. So once I switch over, Cassie, I can try and share the screen. So we've got 4 core values at ECG. They include partner with purpose, teams first, act with integrity, and own the culture. Each of these are kind of the how behind it's everything that we do. It's not just words on a slide. They really shape how people show up here every single day with their clients and their colleagues. So some of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not gonna read through all of these, but I do want to highlight one in particular that personally speaks to me quite a bit, and that's teams first. Team first is very huge at ECG. Everyone brings different skills and backgrounds, but we all care more about the strengths than we do about our differences. So you'll see managers, partners jumping in to review slides at midnight before a client meeting, or consultants coaching interns through their first project, etc. So collaboration is really just the secret of how we get things going and solve problems at ECG. Oh, I see a question.
Hi, Leo, Yale School of Public Health.
Yeah.
Based on the chat, it seems like quite a few of us can't see your slides.
Yeah,
I
I
just
think
thought someone should tell you.
Cassie's trying to pull it up.
Perfect.
Actually, I'm
Thank
going to
you.
try right now. Jake, if you want to go ahead and share why you chose to work at ECG, that'd be great. I'm going to work on these slides.
Yeah, of course. So it definitely takes a certain personality. Saying right, every industry has kind of a certain mindset and a certain way on how business is done. The reason I chose ECG is I was blown away even on the interview stage with the expertise, professionalism of the people I was talking to. And then just the fact that they had this much expertise in one specific area. So, a lot of consulting firms, deal in tax and audit and insurance and all these other different categories, but the ECG is healthcare only. We have doctors within our company that actually provide consulting advice. We have a lot of, nurses and other healthcare professionals that assist us on all of our projects when we need a radiology specialist. Sometimes we'll be able to contact directly with a radiologist to work on some of these projects. And so just the vast partners have, the relationships that they have blew me out of the join here 4 years ago. And consulting is a very competitive industry. There's a lot of people who want to get into consulting, want to get into different roles. And so with all that change, being at a company for that long just shows how much our leadership invests in us and how much, we want to work to do our best every day.
Yeah. Can everyone see my screen now? I know Jake and Cassie are probably freaking out if I'm the one
Yes.
running the PowerPoint.
We can see the screen.
Good. Okay, I'm going to share why I like to work at ECG. And I actually started my career at a different healthcare consulting firm, and I was an intern there. And I rose to the ranks all the way to senior manager, and then left that firm to join ECG. So I was very scared to jump over to a new firm, to be totally honest with you. I had just hadn't experienced it before and was very worried that it wouldn't land and all the other obvious things. But lucky for me, it was a perfect fit, and I really love the team here. But there's really three things about ECG that I love. One is the team, and I know that sounds cliche to say that, but it's true. Jake and I personally sit in one of the smaller divisions, and I really think that helps us stay more connected. That's not to say the other divisions are not. We each find our own ways to do that, but it's just so easy to work together, and you get tons of opportunities to learn from people and work on different projects. And I don't think there's a day you work here where you don't learn something new or pick up something from somebody else. The actual team, we work together. We're in this together, right? If I make a mistake, Jake and my entire team all own the mistake together. If I win something, Jake and the entire team all win something together. It's very team first, as I said earlier. The second thing that I love about ECG is the work. I just get a lot of gratification from it personally. I like the pace. I like the challenge. I think with healthcare, everything is different every single day. There's usually not a project that I work on that I don't have to lean on someone from the team to figure it out together. Lastly, I'll say the autonomy is something that I really like. And obviously that flexes as you kind of move up the ladder. But once you earn that trust, it's really gratifying, right? You can step away on a Friday afternoon if you've got a doctor's appointment or something like that. I mean, at the same time, you've got strong demands as well from clients, but it really does afford you the freedom and the flexibility to have a life outside of work, which is really fulfilling to me. Cassie, are you on? Okay, we haven't got Cassie yet, so I'm just going to keep going, and we can ask Cassie when she gets back why she likes ECG. There's a lot of numbers on this slide, recognize that, but really good numbers. It gives you a quick snapshot of ECG, I think, who we are, what we do, and the kind of impact we've built over time. As Jake said, ECG has been 100% focused on healthcare for over 50 years. That's all we do. That's what we're known for. About 90% of our work actually comes from returning clients or referrals from existing clients, which is awesome, right? You love it when you hear a client say, ECG was fantastic, you have to use them. That's our favorite kind of client to get, new client to get. Because it really demonstrates the trust and the long-term relationships we've built with some of our clients. We've got 8 offices across the country, but we work nationally and internationally to support all different kinds of hospitals and health systems, medical centers, children's hospitals, payers, anything in healthcare, you name it, we've probably worked with them, even private equity. So you'll see that longevity internally too. Our partners and our principals average, I think, 10 years with the firm, which is pretty fantastic. And a big portion of our leadership is made up of women, which is really important for me as a female professional in a consulting field. Just a fun fact, I'm going to brag about this because this kind of sits in Jake and I's division. We actually maintain our own national benchmarking database, and we're right up there at the top with other benchmarking competitors, which is something we're really proud of. That might not mean something to you yet, but we get a lot of benchmark data about specialties and physicians and costs for hospitals and health systems, all those types of things we have easy access to because we create the survey. So it's really cool to be a consulting firm that has something like that. It's definitely sets our firm apart. So definitely want to touch on this. At ECG, DEI is not just a side initiative. It's part of how we work. Oh, sorry, I hear some background noise. It's part of how we work and how we think. We know that innovating things gives us better solutions when we have a mix of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives sitting at the table. So our focus as a firm is growing that representation across all levels, and creating a culture where everyone feels respected and empowered and the ability to speak up. That means that we openly address barriers that hold people back, even though those can be tough conversations. Thank you, Jake. Can you see it? Is this the right slide? Can you guys see movement on that slide? Okay. I'm sorry about the slide issues. I'm not sure what's happening. It might be just the number of people on the call. Here, let me stop.
Looks like Kate's may have frozen too. This must be, again, the size of the Teams meeting. I'm going to try and share mine and see if I can get it pulled up.
Yeah, Cass, see the deck.
Can you see this? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And I also froze for a moment. Is this the right slide for where you were, Jake?
Yes, we were on the, I think we were on the one before,
One before? Okay.
just like the diversity, equity, and inclusion at ECG. So just
Oh,
slide
perfect.
before.
Okay. I'm thinking maybe we'll see if we don't put it in presentation mode. Maybe that's what's interfering with Teams. We'll
think
start
so.
here. Okay. Did we lose Kate?
Yeah, I
And
think
they
we lost
have-
Kate. But we can, because we can take this while Kate rejoins.
Oh, yeah.
But at,
Yeah.
you know, at ECG, like we're committed to a collaborative work environment where everyone, we have a very like important culture of inclusive, many different perspectives, backgrounds, demographics, office locations, even like work types with remote / in office or hybrid employees. Obviously we value different ideas, right? Fostering an environment that has different thoughts is always constructive, right? It's not very fun if you get in a team and everyone has the same idea and everyone's agreeable on the same team. It helps a lot to have people from different backgrounds and different understandings and problem solving and just overall different personalities. It makes teams better. It kind of removes, like I said, like confirmation biases. It helps you identify problems that are helpful to solve together. And we're very committed to this initiative. We actually have a chair of DE&I at ECG that was recently hired this past year to make this more of a staple within our company. And our CEO has been very adamant about committing to this and actually expanding our current presence in this sector.
Hey, Jake, I was able to join on my phone. I'm happy to cover the slide real quick. Related to the DEI, I did want to focus on this specifically. I'm actually the chair of the DEI Advisory Committee at ECG, and we have some really fantastic initiatives. One is the fact that we have employee resource groups that cover all different aspects of the organization, and you can join those, lead those, participate in those. We meet monthly on that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about DEI specifically is, like I said, we have an advisory committee where several of us join this committee and lead these initiatives for the firm, and we cover all different avenues of the divisions in our firm and also on corporate ops side. So this really does touch everyone. The last thing I'll mention that is my favorite part about some of the initiatives we did this year is we had a critical conversation series about different elements of culture and race and class and everything, and it was fantastic. We had people come in from outside the firm to participate in that and lead those discussions, and we're continuing to have those every couple of months or so. So those have been fantastic. I'll pass it back over to you, Jake. The other thing I'll mention about this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we also have another slide of just going on. Kate touched on a little bit of just like our employee resource groups. We have a DE&I director, as I mentioned, reporting directly to the CEO. So again, it remains, like DE&I remains a top focus at our firm. And obviously with the new director, it was an initial investment, and now we're really expanding our footprint in this space. And Kate has much more insight and experience being in the committee.
Yeah, it's really great. This just started. We've always had an advisory committee, but recently we did sort of an overhaul and had people that were at the leadership level join it. Right? We had, I think most of the management committee were on the committee, and now we have everyone from intern to partner on that advisory committee, which lets you see different perspectives than you normally would have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, on this slide, I'll go into an overview of the 4 pillars within ECG, and then I'll, at the bottom, the healthcare consulting pool is, I think, the most relevant to you all of why you should, pay attention to this presentation and why I think is honestly the greatest portion of this slide. So like we've mentioned before, we're healthcare focused only, and how we divide that work up is between strategy and enterprise growth, health system performance, payer strategy and contracting, and then medical group optimization. You can read the bullet points on these slides individually, but strategy and growth is really focused a lot on like mergers and acquisitions activity. We're on the buy and sell side of a lot of different deals. They do some work in like academics and like strategy planning, et cetera, but it's like a lot of valuation, business valuation, a lot of like managed services agreements, et cetera, co-managements. Our HSP team is, it's a combination of our Center of Advanced Oncology, which was a pillar that, combined into HSP, and then performance transformation. I'm not an expert in this division as I'm an MGO, but they do a lot of, hospital operation efficiencies. They obviously do a lot of oncology work. We have several deep experts within the field of oncology that expands our footprint and working in like every cancer center, adult and pediatric. And so there's a lot of work to be done there and a lot of groundbreaking work that they do as a division. PSC, Cassie, you obviously can speak to this better than I can, but they have like managed care services. They do a lot of payer negotiations on behalf of a lot of the health systems and the hospitals in the area, going through some contracts and understanding, what payments were made for certain services, and a lot of audit and regulation on the payments and the payer contracts that are associated with those services. And then our medical group optimization, anything you could think of when it comes to payment transfer between providers. We look at the compensation that they're paid. We'll value the compensation. We'll help design. Well, hospitals will come to us saying, here's our budget. We really need to revamp our current program to attract and recruit, doctors coming out of school. It's like as it goes on, everybody wants high signing bonus, high compensation, but our job is to really just make sure that all those funds work together and the hospital has a reasonable negotiation with those providers. And the most important piece of this, and as an intern at ECG, is when you come into the organization, you are actually in the healthcare consulting pool. This was established a year ago. When you originally came to the firms, like when I joined 3.5 years ago, you would be aligned to one of these divisions and you would solely do the work in that division. Now, when you come in, you will be able to experience in the pool all 4 division work. If you want to be 25% allocated across every single pillar of ECG, then you'll get the widest expanse of project depth. You'll get, experience working with every leader in the firm, touching on projects that span across all of healthcare. Or you can align yourself with just one of these divisions. If it's, hey, I really enjoy, pediatric oncology work. I think that's a space that's growing. I think that project work interests me in the clientele, or whatever reason, and you can align yourself with that division. So it's just a really important piece that we brought in about a year ago that just gives staff the opportunity to be well-rounded in all sorts of healthcare projects.
One thing I will mention about these 4 divisions that I think is really great is it may seem very siloed from an outside perspective, but it's truly not. When we have, for example, MGO projects, if we have something related to oncology that turns into more advisory, we frequently reach out to HSP to say, hey, we need one of your experts on this call. We know all about oncology compensation, but we don't know when it comes to the operations of that. So that's when we get to reach out to these other pillars and ask for that help and potentially refer new projects to them. And they often do the same thing for us. As just one quick example, we have clients in California who we do a lot of strategy and growth work for. Well, the second one of those partners hears something about provider compensation, they immediately reach out to that partner, and that partner calls Jake and I and says, hey, my client needs evaluation. And so we really get to transfer those projects to each other, which is pretty fantastic in my opinion.
It also is a good opportunity to, like, when you align yourself with these divisions, like, for example, I've been doing work for MGO my entire career at ECG, but there are a lot of opportunities. We recently had a retreat in Denver where everyone across the firm who was in the HCP got together, and I got to talk to people in these different divisions because honestly, I didn't know what they did on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I never would because I don't work with any of the leaders in those divisions. And Cassie was actually one where she was walking me through a project that she was working on, a hospital, working with these like payer negotiations and going through the process and just getting exposure that way and getting an understanding of what the type of work would be without actually doing the work. It gives you an opportunity, to meet with others and in the pool and understand like maybe some of the tips that are going well for other consultants in the other divisions, maybe what isn't going so well. But effectively, the pool was created to just create like strengths and a training opportunity for consultants to just become more well-rounded. Where obviously, like in school, like you can pick a major. For example, if you're a finance major in your undergrad, you still have to take a marketing class, an accounting class, an operations class. But when you get into these divisions, it's like your major effectively of what you're doing, but it also allows you to become more well-rounded within the pool. And our leadership, how they originally pitched the pool was to get people outside of just a single focus area. It really was to just get exposure to different client types, different projects, work on different skills where, if you're doing a very strict valuation of, say, a very large hospital acquiring a 2 to 3 provider practice, like there's going to be a lot of analytics, a lot of financial modeling, whereas in another project you may be doing more high level advisories, making slides, giving recommendations, and doing a lot less of the hardcore technical quantitative analysis. And so it just gives a good diversity of projects, and that's incredibly important when you're coming into the firm. Another reason why the pool was made is obviously in consulting, projects ebb and flow. If you sell a multi-million-dollar project, that's going to take up a lot of capacity for a specific staff. If some divisions maybe aren't as busy, then those staff won't have as much to do. This creates more of a flat level of utilization across the firm where leaders can pull people from different divisions. If a staff is getting trained up in PSC, but they have a little bit of availability, maybe someone in HSP will grab their remaining time and get them trained up on how they typically like to do projects. So it also helps everyone in the pool have a more manageable workload. It's not just if your division's really busy, you are really busy. It's more of a even spread of utilization. And the last one, obviously, is just to have more recruitment. If you knew you were getting recruited as an intern and you were placed into S&G, and over the summer you realize that is not what you want to do, it really leaves you stuck thinking that this is what I'm going to have to do for the rest of my tenure here at ECG. And that's not the case. It gives you an opportunity to work with different people. It allows you to change managers, project managers, administrative managers, and it really just makes training way more effective when you get this breadth of experience and breadth of senior leadership. It will bring your skill set, it'll accelerate it forward. And next slide. So the structure, the overall, creator and kind of like manager of the healthcare consulting pool is Aurora Young. She's a partner within our managed group optimization division. She was made in charge of the pool about a year ago, and she does an incredible job of the points I was talking about, of understanding utilization, what staff are doing well, what staff maybe need some assistance with, and creating cultivated training, creating different series of meetings and tips and tricks that can improve, consultants' technical skills, their speaking abilities, and just their overall aptitude in the consulting structure. But day-to-day management, you will come in as an intern or as a consultant within the pool, and you'll have an administrative manager. Fortunately for me, Kate actually is my administrative manager. So you come in and you report to someone who is in charge of, your growth and development and has all your skills set for you, but you'll also work with different project managers. So you'll have an administrative manager aligned to one of the divisions, but you'll have project managers that are across every single division. No matter what work you do, they're going to be looking out for your best interests, and they're going to be development throughout your consulting career. If you go from like a top-down structure, it's like Aurora's our division leader. There are executive support partners who are below her who are cultivating the decks that you all will be reviewing in your trainings, exercises that might be helpful, doing more deep understanding of like utilization of why certain divisions are really busy, why other utilization in divisions is lower. But effectively, you have a formal relationship and you're not just on your own. I think we lost Cassie. So I'll just keep going. But, you're not just put in this pool and, they're told you to find all your own work, try to figure out your own projects. You have to keep yourself busy. There's a large group of resources around you to support your growth at ECG. Your administrative manager will make sure that you're busy and make sure that you have the skills that you need and the resources you need. Your project managers only want you to succeed, which ties back to Kate's point that this is a team. Like, yes, we're all very competitive people that want to be, the best versions of ourselves. But as a group, it's like there's a large support system. The partners will support you and want you to succeed. The managers, your administrative and project managers will want you to grow and succeed. And so that is really, I would be very excited to join something like that because of the support system we have.
The other thing that's really great about the HCP, as Jake said, with the admin managers, you might be wondering, well, how do you coordinate amongst other divisions? My schedule, that seems like a lot to handle. And you're right, it takes a lot of communication, but when you've got an individual that's not in my NGO division proper that I want to use, it's really important that I communicate to that person's admin manager and make sure I'm transparent about how much time I'm going to need of that person. And so you'll see a lot of that communication, and it's a priority for ECG because we want to make sure, as Jake said, that everyone's busy, but also that they're not too busy. We don't want someone, killing themselves every day trying to get this utilization goals or things like that. We want people to have life and have good experiences. So that communication goes a long way with your admin managers.
Mm-hmm. And even as an intern, like, you make an impact immediately. So you are a part of this team. You're part of that structure that we were talking about earlier. And it's not just something that says, can you help me convert this Word doc into a PDF? Like, you make an instant impact in your teams. You'll be on client work from day one. You'll be doing modules that get you trained up in your skills that you need if it's Excel and PowerPoint slides, they'll get you instant training to understand those modules. They'll also teach you on project management, professionalism. So as you're doing client work, you're also doing modules. And then on top of that as well, you'll also be doing research that funds a lot of our thought leadership, a lot of topics that are really important to ECG. Like, an example is the intern I was overseeing last summer. She was doing really deep academic and administrative research to understand, outside of a physician's clinic time, what portion of their time is spent doing administrative activities and trying to understand what is a reasonable market estimate for that time based off specialty. And she gave this presentation to the whole firm, and it's actually a very, eye-opening piece where a lot of physicians claim that they want set apart administrative time, but others were saying that that's just a part of the job. And so it was a very interesting piece that she contributed to how we actually value and look at these providers. So you make an impact immediately. It's not just doing research for the sake of keeping you busy. It's not giving you a fake model just to keep you busy throughout the week. It's actually making a very tangible impact immediately as you start. And in my opinion, I wish I would have interned at ECG because it's not like a whole lot of other internships.
So I'm going to cover this next area. We have a slide here. I'm not sure. I'm so sorry, guys, about the issues with the PowerPoint. We'll certainly circulate this so you have it. But the slide I'm looking at has traits of high potential ECG consultants and intern candidates. And I get that question asked a lot when I'm doing interviews. What makes a good intern? What makes a good consultant? And, one of the biggest things for me is diving for the ball. I want someone who's going to raise their hand and always ask, how can I help? What can I do? Where can I jump in? That's, to me, the biggest plus. If you're bored and don't have something to do, I want you to constantly be asking me, badgering me for something to do, right? So that's number one. Number two is critical thinkers, problem solvers. As I said earlier, I don't know all the answers. I'm maybe working on evaluation engagement, and I have no idea how to address a particular item on it. I want you to feel comfortable asking for help and asking and knowing who to ask. So getting familiar with your team. The third thing that I like to see in people is taking feedback and also being comfortable giving feedback. I know the giving feedback kind of occurs as you move up the ladder, but still it's equally as important. So that's taking that feedback, letting it resonate, working to make it better. That doesn't mean you're not going to make the mistake again. I've made hundreds of mistakes again and again and again, but it's that you're showing me that you have the effort, you hear it, and you're going to move forward with it. Jake, do you want to cover this next slide, a week in the life of an ECG consultant? It's probably
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I'll preface this with the classic consulting adage that it definitely depends, that no 2 days will ever look the same. I try to plan every day, when I wake up and think that it'll be set based off the meetings I have for the day, and every day it changes. So just take this with a grain of salt that things come and go. But typically, you'll go over your emails, maybe something that came in over the weekend. You'll attend internal meetings if there's a standing meeting that you have with clients on Monday to give them an update on the progress you're working on a 9-month project. You'll kind of go over the week before's progress, what the next steps are, etc. A lot of times, like in our division, we're actually interviewing physicians when we're talking about, rearranging their group compensation plan. What do they really like? What are they not incentivized by, etc. So you'll do a lot of interviews, and that's, a lot of note taking and being able to translate those notes into actionable data. You'll get a lot of data sent over to us, maybe in an extremely clean form and maybe in not the cleanest form. And so a lot of data aggregation, going through what's needed, going through what you have, and then also following up with what you still need is very important to have a good data analysis. Again, taking that data, putting it into a presentation and putting it into actionable steps with that data. It's like, this is what we have. This is what we see. Now, what can we do with it and how can we improve it? A lot of times outside of our client work too, you'll be in internal recurring meetings, whether that's with, division leadership, whether that's just with, the healthcare consulting pool meets quite often to go over, utilization, go over kind of what's coming up, retreat information. So again, a lot of recurring internal and external client facing meetings. You'll meet with your mentor. I think we forgot to mention that when you join ECG, you'll have an administrative manager and you'll also be assigned a peer mentor. It's someone you can go to that's a little less formal with questions. Maybe you deem not a question you want to ask your manager, something saying, hey, can you please put this deck together on physician market trends, and you don't even know where to start. So you ask your mentor, hey, are there any templates or anywhere I should go to understand where to even get my foot in the door on this topic? And that's where they can redirect you and have a very good relationship with just when you're starting out at ECG. A lot of times, you'll send a deck out, that deck you put all that data together for partner review, and then the partner will maybe give you some comments back. You got to improve it before the client meeting. But these are all things that, typical business in the day of the consulting life. You start analyses on other projects. You're probably working on multiple projects at once. So maintaining the timelines and your project management on all your other projects that you have. Again, attend more meetings, and at the end of the week, submit your timesheet.
A lot of meetings.
A lot of meetings, a lot of work being done. And again, like in consulting, like you have to track a lot of the time that you're working on with your clients. So then making sure you're just on top of your project management, your time management as well is very important. But that's kind of a day in the life. And especially as an intern, like that is exactly what you'll be doing as well. On top of that, there'll be research, there'll be, projects and just more modules of your training when you first join the company. But that's kind of what you can expect on a day-to-day basis, or a cultivation of all those activities and maybe some of those activities.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna fluctuate. And as a reminder, that's one thing I said I really liked about ECG and consulting in general. You will not do the same thing every single day. I saw an Instagram reel actually yesterday that it was a consultant who joined online, and he saw that he had no meetings that day, and it was like the best day of his life. And those days do exist where you don't have meetings, and you learn to appreciate that because you can get all the work that Jake just described done uninterrupted. Those were the best days. But it does seem like a lot, but trust that you've got the team around you to support you and make sure you get it done. You're never doing something by yourself. You're always part of a team doing something. I know that if Jake is reviewing a report, I'm going to review it after him. A partner's going to review it after me. It's a team dynamic. It's not just you from start to finish. The other thing that I'll talk about, we have. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was able to join by phone. Apologies again for all the tech troubles we're having today. One thing that I think is really powerful about the internship program is that they really do strive to make it a mirror image to what your life will be like if you were to join the firm in a full-time capacity, either as a consultant or a senior consultant is typically the level that folks will come in as if they've finished their master's degree programs and then gone through the internship. So if you're new to consulting or new to the healthcare space, something that's really powerful about the experience is that it really is a sort of 3 to 4 month opportunity for you to test it out and see if you like it, knowing that the full-time experience is going to be very, very similar. That I was new to consulting when I joined ECG as an intern, and I have found that my full-time life now as a senior consultant is very reflective of both the things that Jake just mentioned of like the week in the life of a consultant, but it was also very similar to my internship. So I was able to make an informed decision when I was interning and deciding what I wanted my life to look like after I finished my graduate program.
We also have a slide that you'll see after this, and this is a great example of how you have to pivot quickly as a consultant when your slides don't work. We have a slide in this deck that shows several partners at our firm. I think there's 6 on here, but I also think Clark is on this list, and Clark is a partner. There's 7 partners on this sheet that started as interns at ECG, and they're partners now, which is fantastic. And I'll brag a little bit, and 2 of them are MGO. But I think that's amazing, you know, that they stuck around at the same firm for that long, and made it to partner. I think that's great. That's definitely something to be proud of. Before we start describe, there's a slide on here on how to apply and things like that. But I'd really like us, Cassie, me, and Jay, to answer some of your questions. All questions are welcome. We love questions. We would prefer you guys be talking than us be talking. So speak up or raise your hand, whatever you want. And I'm on my phone, so I can see.
I see there's one question in the chat at least. The question says, I'm going to paraphrase slightly. Let's see. I don't have any prior consulting experience, but want to get involved in the consulting space. Is ECG open to hiring those who maybe don't have prior management consulting experience and are eager to learn and adapt? I would say yes. I am a living, breathing example of that. I came from industry. I worked in a children's hospital for a few years before I went to graduate school and then joined ECG as an intern. I had not even a moment of any kind of consulting experience before I came to ECG. I will say, if you're coming in without consulting experience and healthcare experience, you will probably find it more challenging having the base of knowledge of what it's like to work in a hospital or work in a medical group or work for a health plan even. That can all be really valuable information to bring with you. And then the consulting skills, the presentation skills, the data analytics skills, much of that can be taught. And every year our training materials get more and more robust, particularly as we've developed out the healthcare consulting pool model that Jake was describing earlier. So yes, absolutely. We welcome folks who don't have any consulting experience, but healthcare experience, I would say, is particularly important.
Leonardo, I think I see your hand raised. I'm not sure if you were the first one, so Jake, you'll have to help me out.
I think
No,
one of my classmates beat me to it, so I'll let her go first.
Okay. You can go ahead and ask your question, whoever has their hand raised. I can't see everyone on my phone, so.
I don't know if your audio is working. Sorry, I can see you talking and you're off mute, but it's not working. Apologies if there's some tech difficulty.
In which case, while Nalpa figures that out, I just wanted to ask you all, you're talking about how this consulting pool is relatively new, but even before that, it seems like there was this like cross-pollination between verticals. I'd love to hear about an experience that you've had where either you kind of sought out a project that was kind of outside your space. How easy was it to get that project? Was it easy because it was like at the same time also a business need, or was the firm really good about saying like, no, if you want to learn in this space, that was a really good opportunity for you and kind of worked with you? I'd love to hear about that process.
Jake, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, I would say easy is probably not the right term. I think a lot of projects naturally just flow together, right? Like an example of one that I've done was a larger OBGYN group was acquiring a smaller practice. So I got to work with some of the partners on more of the mergers and acquisition side, where they were doing the hard financials of like valuing, the intangibles and tangibles, like valuing the actual clinic space and all the providers who are there. And then it translated into, once these providers move from running their own independent practice into being an employed physician, right, at a larger organization, how to make that transition smooth, how to integrate them from owning their own practice into being an employee, and kind of what the compensation structure would be, whether that includes, payout for the business value of their organization, paying out their salaries, what kind of plan that they would be on. And so a lot of projects kind of naturally, there's two ways that they can come. They will come naturally as a dual agreement, because they'll come to Kate and I, and we kind of see the project spanning over multiple pillars. So then we'll get involved with the other organizations and say, we think this would be great to bring in one of our oncologists, and then it'll become a collaborative effort. Otherwise, it'll be sold and pitched kind of as a multi deal, and then it just kind of naturally falls that way, and then the staffing aligned to those projects. It's just more so, and it's a very important skill to learn at ECGs, being able to recognize when those projects can have a branch off idea, right? Like when we're sitting there and it's like, oh, this would be great to bring in a partner in another division. That is a very important skill that ECG tries to foster, and it's hard to learn, but a lot of times those are kind of the two that come up.
I would love to answer the question. I see lots of questions about work-life balance, or no work-life balance. And then I'll pass it over to Cassie and Jake, because I think this you'll get a lot of different answers. I previously worked at a firm where I had no work-life balance. I did effectively the same work I do at ECG. I mean, that's why I left, to be totally honest with you. I think I was working 3,000 hours a year or something obnoxious. And ultimately, I just couldn't take it anymore. And part of that was on me, right? I wasn't setting boundaries for my time. I take ownership in that. But so since I've moved over to ECG, I've not had that problem at all. I'm being totally transparent with that answer. I think, like I said, there's more flexibility with your schedule as you move up the firm and earn that trust, right, with your team. But fortunately for our career, we have billable hours, right? So you can't lie about what you're doing with your time. You have to put your time in. And if you over exaggerate your time, we'll know that too, right? Because you'll blow the budget. So we have sort of a natural honor code in our line of work. But I think that there's a lot of flexibility, but it depends on what type of boundaries you want to set as a person, right? And you go through different phases in your life where work comes first and sometimes family comes first. But I think at the end of the day, that's up to you and where you want to set those boundaries. But me and Jake knows this. I personally hate any meeting that is after 2:00 on a Friday. That's like my biggest pet peeve. And anytime someone tries to schedule time with me, I usually get a message that says, I'm so sorry, this is the only time that's available. But I feel like I have a job where I can maintain that, and I don't have to have meetings on Friday afternoon. So that goes a long way for me. So Cassie, Jake, I don't know how you would answer that question, but I'd love to hear it.
I'm happy to comment in, especially because I'm in a totally different division than Kate and Jake, and I'm also at a more junior level of staff as a senior consultant. I also have really good work-life balance, I would say, to the point of the billable hour and the idea that our time is relatively tracked and monitored because we have to charge our clients for the time that we spend doing work for them. I'm a really big believer in trying to bill as close to a full 8-hour day in as little as time above 8 hours as humanly possible. So I really appreciate an efficient day. So while I'm working, I like to be really focused, like kind of phone down, distractions at a minimum, because I want to make the most of the time that I'm going to spend at work so that I can then close my laptop at the end of the day and go do anything else in my personal life. I agree, even at a lower level, I find I have quite a bit of flexibility, and also like independence and trust with my team. If I have a day where I need to take a half day or I need to go to appointments or whatever, nobody is asking me like where I am or questioning why I need to take time for myself. So it's very trusting. People treat you like an adult. Even when I was an intern, even when I first started at the firm, there's a level of trust which is really really nice. And I've heard that from folks around the firm, different divisions, different levels. So I think you would find that to be a relatively common experience. I will say, as one caveat, we are in client services, so there are always going to be moments where a client's going to ask for something, and it might mean you have one late night, but for me, that is far more often the exception and not the rule. I can probably count on one hand the number of like late nights, quote, that I've worked at ECG in 2.5 years.
That's a
Yeah,
great answer, Cass.
Yeah, completely agree. And time zones play a factor into that too. Like where a client may not think a 4 o'clock meeting on the West Coast is late, and you may be on the East Coast, and that's quite late for you. That happens. It's rare, but they have an understanding too of where you're located. And I could go on about how, you know, my work-life balance is great, how I have the flexibility and everything, but it really is shown, and you hear that from like a pitch or from like a recruiter. But then to see our leadership actually put that into practice, it does trickle down where, you know, our partners in our division go on multi-international trips a year. Like they're out of the country, you know, they are really showing that they have a work-life balance, but then when they're working, they work incredibly hard. But that just goes to show that they have flexibility, that they promote flexibility within all of us. And so it's not just something that's said at a high level and then not done. It is put into practice, and people do have very good work-life balances, even when they are busy.
I see another question that says, you've each come to ECG from different backgrounds and hearing about ECG's value of diversity. Curious about how your previous experiences translated the work you do now at ECG. So like I said, I fortunately, I was doing the same type of work at my last firm. I was doing valuation and comp design and those types of things. So it was very easy for me to transition from a technical standpoint, for the most part. The leadership's obviously different, right? Every boss you have is going to be different. I came from working under 5 partners to working under 2. And I know I said we have more partners in our division, but I directly usually work with just 2 of the 5. So, you know, you have to flex with some of that. You have to learn their styles, but that's no different. You figure it out, you know, as you work and work with the team. Jake, Cassie, do you want to answer that too?
Yeah, I can answer. I did not come from the healthcare evaluation background. I was at a like Fortune 500 large healthcare organization where I was strictly working on more data visualization and Tableau, like working in code and SQL and Python, and translating more of like financial processes to newer and improved applications. And with all that, it all translates into doing any sort of data analysis or like formula understanding, right? Like if you understand how to code, you understand how to work in Excel at any organization. If you're going to be doing that at your next organization, you'll be able to do it at a high level. It's more so just building those business skills where, you know, like obviously if your healthcare expertise is somewhere and your consulting expertise is elsewhere, you can always build on those skills, but it's having that fundamental understanding and being coachable, I would say, is like the hardest thing that you have to come in with, and just be able to be mendable and be teachable.
Karen, I see you have your hand raised. You want to ask a question?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi everyone. My name is Karen. I'm a first-year grad student in the Health Systems Management program at Rush University. Thank you for the presentation. It's been all very informative. I know during the presentation you mentioned that the intern does a summer research project that they end up presenting at the end. So I was just wondering a little bit more about it and just seeing what that process looks like throughout the summer, and how do interns usually pick their topics, and do they usually collaborate with their peer mentors, or how does that work out?
I'm happy to take this one as a former survivor of the summer research project. No, it wasn't that bad, I promise. So the process is fairly collaborative, especially in the early stages. The way it worked out for me and the way that it's panned out in the summers since my personal experience, typically when I can't come in, or when an intern comes in, the administrative manager that you report to will have some kind of an idea of, let's say, like a short list of topics. It typically ties back to an actual client project, either that's currently in the works or might be a client project that's coming up in like the next few months, and we're looking to basically lay the groundwork to start a new project. Or it might even be an ongoing project that we basically had sort of an unanswered question that the team didn't have time to delve into to the extent or depth that they wanted to. And so having an extra team member here for a summer is a really great opportunity for us to basically add someone to the team and take on this other question. So typically there'll be kind of a short list of like 2 or 3 ideas, and then we allow the intern to kind of spend some time percolating on those and then choosing a topic. You then spend like the first couple of weeks kind of outlining, doing initial research, coming back both with your peer mentor and your administrative manager, sometimes even like the project team if it's related to like a direct client experience, to basically refine your research and kind of confirm the direction, make sure that you're progressing in the right way, that you're asking good questions, that you're getting help if you're stuck on any part of the research process. And then the experience culminates with developing, I want to say it's like a 15 to 20 minute presentation that you'll deliver either to one of our divisions or to some kind of larger, maybe like 2 divisions, depending on where the project itself sits. And it's a great experience to introduce yourself to, a larger subsection of folks in the firm. It's a great opportunity to showcase your presentation and your research or your data analytics skills, especially because the summer is ultimately so short. You'll get to work with quite a few people, but there's plenty of folks who you won't have had a chance to meet. And the research project is an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to folks who maybe haven't had a chance to work with you over the summer.
The other question I see is travel requirements. I think that depends on what division you're in, what type of clients you serve, and then also your level in the firm. I think this past year, I think I traveled a few days every month. It was never for like a full 7-day trip. I do know that our partners and at least NGO travel extensively. But you get some say in that as well, I will say. And then real quickly, I saw a question about AI, which I thought was a fantastic question. It definitely has affected our business, I think. Absolutely. We actually just had a newsletter come out from our CIO, I think yesterday or maybe it was today, about AI and implications for its use. And, it trickles down all the way into our thought leadership. We have our marketing team actually has some AI tools to make sure that our thought leadership is not plagiarized, but also to make sure that it's unique and that viewpoint isn't already out there in the universe. So it absolutely is playing a part in what we do every single day. Any other questions that we may have missed in the chat? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I saw one that's asking about, and I know we're right at about time, so I'll try and keep this brief. The connection between internship opportunities and what that looks like for a transition to full-time roles after the completion of the internship. Generally speaking, I would recommend treating the internship a little bit like a 2-way interview. The goal is obviously if ECG and our colleagues are spending all of the time and resources throughout the summer teaching you kind of the fundamentals, giving you the opportunities to learn and work on projects. Obviously, we hope that you love the experience, that you learn a lot, and that you decide once you've completed your summer experience and completed your education that you want to come back and work with us full time. It's really rewarding to kind of see somebody move into this space and really find their groove and decide to come back. So it's always the goal that it's a good match and it's somebody who wants to come join us long term. It also is a chance for you to decide if this is something that you enjoy doing. For example, I mentioned I didn't work in consulting before, so this was very much me also kind of interviewing ECG for 3 months and deciding if this was the kind of work that I could see myself doing. So treat it a little bit like 2-way. The goal is always for us to bring back folks who do well in the internship, who clearly demonstrate that they want to be there and can be successful, and also people who will enjoy the work. So generally speaking, yes, we do tend to bring folks back after the program. Not everybody, but generally speaking, that is the goal.
Any other questions? I know we're at time, but we do want to make sure all your questions are answered. Anything we can answer that you have. Jake is amazing to work with. If everyone's asking, is he actually as nice as he sounds? Yes, he's a great colleague to have. And so is Cassie, although I have not gotten the opportunity to work with Cassie, but now I'm going to, obviously. So I'll have to talk to her admin manager about.
We do very different things. I did also see one more that asks a little bit about lifestyle and travel, or where are we based, or are we remote, are we in person? Most of the folks we hire these days are in one of our 8 offices. So you'll be asked to come and work in a hybrid fashion. Right now, I think the requirement is 2 days a week we're in office. So I'm in our Boston office twice a week. And then I'm home 3 days a week. Travel is very division dependent. So I sit in the healthcare consulting pool, but I mostly am affiliated with payer strategy work. That means a lot of my work is in PDFs and in Excel, and nobody needs me to get on a plane to look at a PDF or do Excel. So I have never traveled actually for work, other than sometimes to meet my colleagues in other offices, but I have never traveled for client purposes. Other divisions, like our performance transformation division, that really focuses on hospital operations and like boots on the ground, being in person kind of work, they have a much different travel expectation. One cool thing about the pool is that if I wanted to have a bit of travel experience, I could ask to go work on a performance transformation project and kind of get that experience under my belt. But it's very division dependent, and therefore also a little bit dependent on what kind of life and schedule you would like to have. Kate or Jake, I don't know if you have anything else to share about that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It totally depends. You know, in our division, we try and go see all of we call them our anchor clients. So there are our clients that generate at least over 100 grand or so in revenue a year. And so we always try and make a point to visit those clients on our dime. We don't charge them for that. Just to make sure we're out there to see our face. They know we're tangible, that, you know, we care about more than their business. So we do that every single year. We try and get out there to those clients. So, and they seem to really appreciate that.
Jacob,
A couple
you
of
had your
other
hand
quick
raised?
questions I've seen. A couple of other ones I've seen come through the chat briefly. One is the requirement 8 billable hours a day? No, that would be really scary and a lot of work. Generally speaking, you can do more than 8 hours of time spent and not hit 8 billable hours because of administrative tasks and getting distracted by things. The amount of expected work kind of depends on the amount of work that's sold. And we think pretty obsessively about how much people are assigned at any one given moment to try and prevent people from feeling overwhelmed, burned out, and also not busy enough. That can be a problem too. So that's all pretty heavily managed, but the expectation is not billing 8 hours every single day. And then the other question I saw come through was
I was just saying we have utilization targets for each level in the firm. As you can imagine, as you move up the firm, your target goes down because you're expected to be out there generating business and doing more thought leadership things. But you know, in my opinion, and I know it's the opinion of our partners at the NGO level anyway, is you know, they don't really ever want you above 5 to 10% of your target. Because at that point, you know, not only is it miserable for you, your work starts to suffer at that point, right? You're not putting forth your all-star work product that you normally would. So I would say Cassie's dead on when she says obsessively. We're always looking at that to make sure that everyone's protected from a busyness standpoint and from a work-life balance standpoint.
Another question I saw come through, questions about the internship deadline. That internship deadline, positions are posted now, as far as I know, and our deadline, I believe, is February 13th of 2026. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis, so the sooner you send them in, the sooner they'll be reviewed and the process can get moving forward. I want to double check my fact here, and Kate or Jake, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the target we're looking to hire is 4 interns for our summer, 1 for each division tentatively. Obviously, you'll be part of the pool and working kind of here, there, and everywhere. But I believe the number was 4 in total.
I think that's accurate, Cassie. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely not capped at 4. I think it's a lot of line, like that's what we had last year as well. It was like 1 in each division, kind of works out well. But if there's interest, like if there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of qualified candidates, we're not going to cap our internship program simply because we're trying to hit a number. Like if there are a certain amount of qualified candidates and the divisions have the need for those interns, then we'll fill as many as that kind of number settles out to. But overall, it's about an even distribution across all the divisions.
One thing I do want to mention, just from a non-intern perspective, I've sat in on, I think, 3 of those intern presentations, and I am sure that it sounds absolutely terrifying to present in front of 2 divisions as an intern. I'm not sure I would want to do that, but I will say that we are so impressed when we sit down on those presentations. So it may not mean anything to say this, but try not to have so much anxiety about it, because everyone that's in that room is hoping you succeed and rooting for you. And the sessions that I've sat in on, there's so many questions asked at the end of the presentation. People are focused, people are paying attention, so they get a lot out of it. So I don't want you to hear that there's this nerve-wracking presentation, but it's really not as stressful maybe as it may sound.
And Jacob, I know you've had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for throwing this webinar for us. So I really appreciate that and the valuable info. But I'm an MPH MBA dual degree student at Emory, and the MBA class graduates by the summer of 2027, but dual degree students would be graduating by the winter. So if I am, hypothetically speaking, if I received an internship offer to ECG for the summer of 2026, and then a return offer, would ECG be willing to extend the time I have to accept the job offer until I graduate by winter of 2027?
Cassie, do you know the answer?
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure we'd be flexible in that, because our intern last summer was, the intern I was overseeing was a dual degree as well, who's actually in the middle of her program. So she was doing both at the same time while being an intern. So yeah, and then she got extended a full-time offer and moved around her start date because life happens, right? You know, people get married, or some family events come up where start dates have to be moved up or pushed back. So yes, there's flexibility in that sense. And so that wouldn't be a concern. I wouldn't have that concern.
Got it. Thank you so much for the answer.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm also a dual MBA and PH, so very excited to meet another one of you. I don't find that many of us.
Any other questions? Comments, concerns? All right. Well, the 3 of us are more than available, and I know Andrea is too. I don't know if she's on this call or not, but Andrea is fabulous. She's one of my favorite people at the firm. So if you have questions, I know she can answer them, but we're also completely available. If you have any questions or anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to the 3 of us. We'd be happy to talk more about ECG.
We'll make sure that Andrea sends around the slide deck that we were able to share little bits and pieces of today. It'll have more information about deadlines and the general interview process and things of that nature. And then, of course, as Kate said, if you have detailed questions about any of it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our emails are also on one of the introductory slides, so you can find us there.